Hello and welcome to this special discussion on The Wire. Today we will talk about the way India and China have fortunately have disengaged at the Doklam plateau after 75 days of eyeball to eyeball confrontation. And we have with us today Prem Shankar Jha, a veteran journalist and somebody who's written on the subject a lot, and he's been writing for The Wire on India-China relations and of course other subjects too. And he's written a piece yesterday on The Wire where he argues that the Doklam disengagement is best described as a match drawn. He uses a cricketing metaphor, and he says that this is a great opportunity for re-engagement between India and China. Welcome to our discussion, Prem. So please explain to us what you mean when you say first this is a draw and that this provides a great opportunity for re-engagement between India and China, as it were.
Well, it's a draw because both sides have conceded something. The precise amount of concession is not yet known, and that is the best possible way in which a disagreement can be settled through some mutual concessions. In the case of India, the decision to go into Doklam was hasty, because Doklam is not a part of India, it's a part of Bhutan, and Bhutan needed to have asked us for military help. You can't see we went in on the basis of an existing defense treaty, but the road had not yet reached Doklam. It was coming towards Doklam. Therefore, there was no invasion and there was no request from Bhutan. We went in on our own for our real or imagined worries about where this road was leading and what that would mean for the security of the Chicken's Neck region between, over Bangladesh, joining us with the northeast. But in so doing, we actually invaded a third country. And the Chinese said, if you look at it as Bhutan, it means you went into Bhutan without their having asked you, which is bad enough. But since it's a disputed area between China and Bhutan, the Chinese said this is aggression. And their minimum condition was that you would leave in toto from there. We have met that. Chinese reply is that saying that we will that we will continue to patrol the region. The Doklam is a statement of sovereignty, but it implies that we pulled out the permanent presence we've had there for the last 2.5 months. So there is a mutual pullback. That is absolutely correct.
And they've talked about making some adjustments.
I'm not. Those are details. No one knows what that means. The important issue that nobody has talked about is what about the road? That was why India went in. Did the Chinese give any commitment that they would not build the road? As far as we can make out, they have not. But on the other hand, I'm pretty certain they've said that they will not continue with that just now, and that to that extent, if that is true, India has gained something from this position. But we were in an extremely dangerous and politically and in international law and in diplomatic terms, we were in an untenable position. Now that we've got out, we have an opportunity. And you were asking me earlier what the opportunity is. I'd be happy to explain.
Before we come to opportunity, Prem, just one more clarification. What is your interpretation of the Chinese statement that they will maintain their historical sovereignty as per they will maintain the territorial sovereignty as per historical convention. This word historical convention has been used in their statement. Does it mean the 1890 agreement or what?
No, what they're referring to is that they have certificates which show graziers paying tax to Lhasa, coming right into recent times, from the Doklam plateau. and therefore they've got, what they're saying is they've got historical proof.
Okay.
Now the trouble is, Bhutan also has it. I say,
carry on,
of course, you cannot go on with this.
No, carry on, sir. Yeah, just ignore it.
Will you'll hear the sound.
No. Yes,
Okay. Anyway, so that is what they mean by historical convention. These are, you see, everyone's playing. They have to play to their gallery also. We are playing to our gallery.
Yeah.
We are claiming it's a victory, which is a very bad thing to do. And please note that it is not the government that is claiming victory now. It is the hawks, I suspect, in the BJP, in the RSS, and their favorite buddies in the media. Within 1 hour of this agreement, you had a full written thing in China saying this, in Economic Times, saying this is a complete victory for China and for India, and China's position in the world has gone down because of India's victory. All that within 1 hour, it was written and ready and put in straight away. Now that of course is precisely what we do not need.
We do not need
because if the Chinese, all that the Chinese need to do to puncture this is to start road building again.
Yeah.
We are gone. Are we going to go back in again?
Yeah, that's true. And what about the opportunities now? You said you'll talk about this being a great opportunity.
The opportunity is the really big one. And I'm glad you asked me that. The interesting thing was China did something which it doesn't normally do. It extensively referred to international law and treaty law to justify its position. It referred to the 1890 treaty.
Yeah.
It pointed out that the 1890 treaty had made the watershed, the Himalayan watershed, as the boundary between Sikkim and Tibet. And so it accepted the watershed principle. It went on to point out 8 separate occasions in which India and China have exchanged, whatever it is, messages or declarations, which have referred to the watershed.
Okay.
Now, the McMahon line was also a watershed. The trouble was that it was drawn badly. So, or in a hurry, in fact, in haste, casually by a British officer.
Okay.
And as the Indians say, with a very broad pen.
Yeah.
And the whole Chinese-Indian war began because at one point, this thing was 6 kilometers, about 4 miles south of another tri-junction. I don't think it's the same one. Between Bhutan and I think Sikkim and Tibet. I don't quite remember. But at that tri-junction, the McMahon line actually passed 6 kilometers south of it. And the Dhola post was established on the watershed. The Indian government said this is a mistake in the McMahon line, we want to correct it. We sent a corrected map to the Chinese. The Chinese rejected it, saying essentially because we were not accepting the watershed principle of the Karakoram range in the west. And so they said, we stick by what is drawn there. And therefore, when that happened, we sent 200 or 300 soldiers to Dhola post. The Chinese surrounded them with 600 soldiers, and that was the beginning of the 1962 war.
That was the beginning of the 62 war?
Yeah, because the Thagla Ridge was in between.
And
we said, throw the Chinese out.
Now, Prem, coming to the present, how do you characterize the relationship with China in the last 3 years under this government, and how do you think we can repair relations going forward from here?
Well, I think just to go back to the 1962 situation, we made a very big mistake of going in and trying to settle this on the basis of force, and that's the mistake that's been avoided today.
You're saying that we have avoided that mistake today.
Yeah, that is the mistake we made after having put ourselves in a similar position.
That's interesting that you're saying.
We avoided that.
So we're learning from history.
Looking forward, I think what we should be doing is we should be saying, look, we accept the watershed principle. let us leave for the time being. Let us not join Ladakh and northeast and the northeast frontiers. In fact, they have been de facto disconnected now for 60 years.
Okay.
And let's keep it that way. Ladakh is Ladakh, and let us first deal with this. And we should say, let us redraw the boundary on the basis of the watershed principle, and let us work jointly on determining precisely where the watershed lies, as was done in the case of the 1890 treaty.
Okay.
Now, from where to where?
Yeah.
You have a border settlement with China has one with Myanmar, which is also established on the Himalayan watershed there.
Okay.
But it says to the western extremity of Myanmar, but doesn't define that precise point, because that's the point where India starts.
Okay.
And there were disputes started there. So first step is, we should say that, look, let India, China and Myanmar get together, and let us define that western extremity point.
Okay.
And then India and China should continue the process on the watershed principle, and go all the way through.
Okay.
You know, that would be the right way to do this and end it once and for all. You know, and then the question only would remain of, you know, a few tracts like the Tawang tract and Tawang monastery. I think there are many solutions to that that we can think of. But if, you know, you have to prepare the Indian public for the fact that hard frontiers in these areas drawn by the British don't necessarily have to be defended. Why are we defending? Why are we getting into wars? We got into a 62 war. Defending a line that had been drawn by the people whom we threw out of India.
Okay.
By our oppressors.
Yeah.
Why do we make our oppressors' line our own the moment they go? Many countries have made this mistake, and they've all paid the price for it.
Okay.
Actually, I think that the Chinese position on this from the beginning, except for the fact that they started building the road in Aksai Chin without informing us, which is a huge mistake, and everything follows from that.
Yeah.
But if you put that aside, the Chinese position on this has been consistent.
Okay.
Let us look at our entire Himalayan border. It's been a border region in the past. We need some kind of definition, because that's the way modern nations are.
It's about
today.
4,000 kilometers?
Something like that. I mean, you know, it's very, very, very long.
Long one,
And we say, let us apply this principle throughout. I think Ladakh can be set aside. The Chinese are quite happy with that.
Okay.
But in this area, we should do it, and we have an opportunity. They've given us an opportunity.
Okay. So this is what you call opportunity. So
They have established a principle which in the law both gives us a basis for ending the dispute without either side feeling the loser or the winner.
Okay.
And the benefits from that for both countries are enormous, but particularly for us.
But if you, Prem, if you look at India-China engagement comprehensively, now which are the areas where going forward that India should focus on, and which are the areas which should be kind of put on the back burner?
I'm glad you asked that question, Venu, because actually what's happening now, as I said, what can be done, but the conditions for doing this are not optimal today. They were optimal in 2014 when Xi Jinping came to India. Xi Jinping came to India at the end of a 5-year period, beginning with Wen Jiabao's meeting with Manmohan Singh at Hua Hin on the sidelines of the APEC conference there in 2009, in which we were steadily moving towards both a resolution of this border dispute and the building of strategic cooperation relationships with China, whose purpose would be to create a more peaceful and stable world order. Now, that process, which started in Hua Hin, its key elements were that the Chinese stopped talking about South Tibet. They went on to talking about, they said border dispute. It's a border dispute. Then Wen Jiabao said, this will get settled gradually let's now improve our strategic relationships and our cooperation on all kinds of things. At that time, climate change was the big thing also. So that was his second point. When Xi Jinping came, he wanted to speed this up. And in Durban, at the BRICS meeting in Durban in 2013, he broke all kinds of protocol rules in speaking to Manmohan. And he said, the key thing he said is, let's settle this as early as possible. He changed the term from gradually to as early as possible. And he said, I'm sending Li Keqiang. Li Keqiang had his first foreign tour all planned, and it was not starting in India. He broke all that.
The Prime Minister,
President did, and said to Manmohan that I'm sending Li Keqiang first to India. So the first country that Li Keqiang came to was in India. It was a fantastic meeting between him and Manmohan Singh, and there was an attempt to screw it up, which, as we found out later on, was actually a local effort of the Tibetan High Command, who in fact have as huge vested interest in the continuation of conflict in Tibet as, let's say, that there are certain elements of the Indian intelligence agencies have a continuation of conflict in Kashmir. For the same kind of reasons. Anyway, the Chinese leaked that also to us. And Li Keqiang, that was settled before he came. It was an excellent meeting, and that led to Xi Jinping's visit. And Xi Jinping had come with the full intention of finding a formula that would end this conflict. But we had a new Prime Minister who was not au fait with this, and who was not in agreement with this thing, with this whole approach. He wanted to be different from the Congress. And the first thing was, he said, I must harden my position against all my neighbors, show that India is strong. This business of mistaking bravado for bravery, it plays very well with an insecure middle class, whose vote Mr. Modi has in his pocket. But it's extremely dangerous abroad. And the Chinese, when he did this Doklam, it was part of that bravado. And it's just very lucky that good sense has prevailed, and we have withdrawn. The Chinese have indicated once again that they really do not want a conflict with us, because in the long term they want cooperation. I'd be happy to tell you what the cooperation they want is. Because we're coming to BRICS.
Exactly. From here on, the two leaders will be meeting at BRICS, and China, by all appearances, is interested in some of these non-Western blocks of countries, regional blocks, also to prosper. Well, OBOR precisely has that logic, Belt Road Initiative. So how do you see these initiatives going forward? BRICS, we are with China on Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Do you think we should have...
At the moment, Venu, all of our frameworks for cooperation with China are leftovers from the Manmohan regime, which are totally empty of content. BRICS is, to all intents and purposes, dead. The Goa meeting was so acrimonious, and Putin in China and Xi Jinping treated India with so much contempt that I'm surprised that we're even having another meeting. But we're having a meeting at Xiamen. What has happened is, the strategic cooperation that the Chinese wanted, and have said so in a dozen venues, including some I've been present at, is to create a multipolar world and to prevent or to dissuade the US from trying constantly to create a unipolar world, which attempt has been leading to war after war after war ever since the 1990s. Now, this increasing turmoil is what they wanted to stop. And in 2012, at the Delhi Declaration of the BRICS, took this fully into account. It is the most significant document because it spelled out the entire area of strategic cooperation that India and China wanted to follow. We wanted to strengthen the UN. We wanted to prevent the UN Security Council from being dragooned into making resolutions, and then these resolutions being abused in order to start conflicts that were not even remotely imagined by the 15 members of the Council at the time when they passed the resolutions, like on Libya. And so we were very angry about that. We were very angry about the attack on Syria. We felt that these were all wrong. We made it very clear unambiguously that we stood by Iran and we would not appreciate, shall we say, it's a gentle word, an attack on Iran. All that came in the 2012 thing, and we created the BRICS Bank. Now the BRICS Bank is the seed out of which OBOR has grown.
Yeah. There's a connection between BRICS Bank, OBOR,
because
and the Asia Investment Bank.
You see, the connection is that it gives you an avenue for funding large projects all over Central Asia, which is not seen to be bilateral.
Yeah.
The money comes to the bank, and the bank lends, and the bank has four or five directors, in fact, and so it is a multilateral thing. It is directly then in competition with something like the Asian Development Bank.
Yeah.
Okay? And that makes it possible. But the OBOR scheme, which has been unveiled, is much more ambitious than that.
Yeah.
Its root cause is that China, in a time when it attempts to contain China's rise, are getting steadily more strident. And people are talking about wargaming, things like closing the Malacca Straits and so on. It feels very vulnerable on the sea.
Okay.
It feels vulnerable because, among other things, technology of war has changed. The 12-mile exclusion zone of the law of the sea means nothing when the Tomahawk missiles, with which all American ships are now equipped, have a range of 700 miles. You can actually be sitting on one side.
So you think technology has made old rules kind of redundant?
Yeah. So the Chinese have basically been saying that we need a military identification system for our security, to feel secure over the South China Sea. So, of course, commercial navigation, no problem. But if a military ship or aircraft ought to come, please go through the identification process so we know where you are and you know what. That was taken as a vast infringement of the law of the sea. But the law of the sea with this technology effectively confers dominance of all seas up to 12 miles from the Chinese coast to the Americans.
Yeah, sure.
So this was being challenged. So starting with that, the conflict has been steadily getting worse, getting more intense in the South China Sea and so on, and we got involved in it.
Yeah. You think that was a mistake?
A massive mistake. We signed a joint, strategic vision for Southeast Asia and the Western Pacific, or whatever it's called. But that is not an area of immediate interest to us. Then we followed. That was in January 2015. In May 2016, we sent 4 warships with an American task force cruising the South China Sea for 3 months. The Chinese still didn't react. But they noted everything. See, these things have soured the pitch. Then last year, there was 2 visits by US government officials, the Consul General in Calcutta and the ambassador to Itanagar and Tawang. They made political statements there, saying that this is part of India. And that politicizing this, trying to get political legitimacy for this, actually impinges upon the bilateralism of the border dispute, which is the base of the 1993 Agreement on Peace and Tranquility in the border regions. So the Chinese have been warning us about this. But what they've been saying is, they've been doing it indirectly, saying the Americans are playing this game in order to divide us. They're doing the divide and rule.
You think, don't fall into that trap.
Don't fall into that trap. Now, Mr. Modi should have seen that these are signals.
But from here, just one small interjection.
Please.
Do you think while Chinese were delivering these subtle warnings to us, but did they help the cause by not supporting India at the NSG? What India's complaint is by not and by not adequately sort of explaining the as part of OBOR the route through Pakistan occupied Kashmir, etc. Now, which is the main irritant from India's standpoint today, right? Which is why India did not go for the Belt Road meeting in Beijing. So how do you paper over these irritants?
Well, the question is this. I scratch you, all right? And you burn your house down in order to pay me back because I scratched you. how did it hurt me? That's what we did. Okay, so look, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor doesn't exist today. This agreement was signed for the Karakoram Highway in 1960.
Yeah.
The Chinese put into that agreement an explicit caveat that should there be a change in the, in the political situation in this area, this relationship will be revised. I don't remember the exact words, but it's explicit. We could have asked for exactly the same thing to be done here. Yeah. We said no. You must not build that.
You mean that was offered to India? What you say?
We should have said that.
We could have said that.
I don't know whether it was offered or not. We don't know what they talk about. But I'm talking of the public discourse.
Yeah.
In the public discourse, we went public and said, no, you mustn't build that because it's going through our land. Now, when you say our land, first of all, it goes against facts on the ground.
Yeah.
Second, it also goes against the 1972 Shimla Agreement, where it was de facto. We have been saying it was a de facto boundary demarcation. Now, suddenly you've gone back on that. Third is it goes against the Manmohan-Musharraf Framework Agreement.
Yeah.
So you are in fact trashing every agreement that was to your advantage to make a point which has no significance on the ground. And then when the Chinese, who also after all have commitments, they need the Pakistanis for making that road, they say we are not going to get into this, which is effectively what they did. Then you say, okay, since you're not, it's like, we gave an ultimatum, you do this or we will not go into Obor. So they say we won't do it. We didn't go into Obor. But who hurts from all this? We hurt. Which is why I wrote a piece for you saying, it's cutting off my nose to spike your face.
So it's finally, Prem, it seems to be from whatever that you've said so far, it seems to be a case where there's a certain lack of trust, and when we seem to be getting, both the countries seem to be getting bogged down on very short-term negativities. And is there a need today, therefore, as Henry Kissinger would say or has said in the context of US-China relations, to build? Is there a need to build a certain, a relationship which looks at, say, 20 years, between, say, two civilizations? Look at long term and not the short term irritants.
I would have thought that is the first thing we should have been doing. The only time we have come even close to it has been in the period when Dr. Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister and Shiv Shankar Menon was the National Security Advisor. Menon is fluent in Chinese, has served there, is exceptionally intelligent, and he has the strategic vision. And it was this strategic vision which was propelling India-China relations between 2009 and 2014. It was Manmohan and Shiv Shankar Menon, backed by the Foreign Office, which was completely in line with this. Okay. Now, for us, that was an accident. For the Chinese, it's normal to think long range. One, because their political principles are derived from Confucius and not from the notion of a Hegelian or Marxist dialectic, of which is transformed into democracy. They don't think short term because democracy, by definition, is thinking every 5 years. And they think in terms of decades, certainly, and possibly even centuries. Now that is wired into their genes.
Of the Chinese.
Secondly, because of this, the Chinese Communist Party is extraordinarily integrated in the way it works and frames long-term policy, which also explains the dizzy speed with which China has risen. Because it's a collective leadership. The leaders are people who have come through the party and who have been tested at every level of the party before they get to the top, particularly the Politburo and the Standing Committee. And these people, long ago, in a series of rectifications of the Communist Party, the Long Marchers and other, shall we say, the street fighters of communism were eliminated
Yeah.
from the Politburo and then the Standing Committee. Today, everybody there has well, most of them have PhD degrees.
Yeah.
Otherwise, all of them have master's degrees. You know,
Yeah.
all of them have masters and most have PhD degrees in various subjects, and they work together.
Okay.
And they think long term, and the party structure is such that whatever is decided on top goes right down to the bottom immediately.
Okay.
And how it's interpreted changes in every province,
Yeah.
and within every province and every prefecture, every county, and actually even in every village.
Okay.
I've seen quite different interpretations
Okay.
of instructions from the top. I'm talking from the county level or the prefecture level. Two villages doing opposite things,
Okay.
but well within the framework. that
overall
we're given.
framework, yeah.
Exactly. We don't have a framework.
Okay.
Another problem with India is that our democracy, you know, to have a long-term view of India, you have to have people to whom the imagined concept of a nation, you know, Benedict Anderson's idea, is a very great reality, and there is a consensus on
And
it.
they're aligned to it, yeah.
There's a consensus on it. Our democratic system has been one that has destroyed every elite that has come up. And all that you've got left at the bottom is a sort of a rank populism, a predatory rank populist elite of politicians whose only purpose is coming to power. And for most of them, that power is not only an end in itself, it's not a means to an end, but if it's a means to an end, it is self-enrichment.
Okay.
Now,
So-
this kind of country simply cannot think long. We have lost the idea of India, and the BJP is imposing an antediluvian, anachronistic idea of India, trying to impose it upon us, and the opposition has no alternative to confront it with.
So finally, Prem, in just 2 minutes, three things that we need to do to repair India-China engagement from here on. Just 2 or 3 things there.
One,
This is totally short term. Of course, you
no,
spoke
no,
about
no,
the
no,
long
immediate.
immediate. Yeah.
Immediate, I think we go to BRICS with the intention of again closing our relationship with Russia and China. And there are a few key issues. The threat to Iran, climate change, the threat to Iran, the problems in the Middle East,
Yeah.
the terrible behavior with Syria, the fact that you refuse to end this conflict.
Yeah.
We should back Russia on Syria, and we should back Russia and China on Iran.
Okay.
This does not mean that we're fighting with the US, because the US also is confused. They're also backing, both fighting with Russia,
Yeah.
side by side with Russia, at the same time against Russia.
Running with the hare, hunting with the hound.
There's confusion there. We will actually help to clear this confusion.
Okay.
That's the starting point.
Okay.
The second thing is, I think that we should reopen discussions on OBOR
Okay.
quietly,
Quietly.
on the sidelines, because nothing is ever closed.
Yeah.
Particularly in economics, nothing is ever closed.
Yeah.
But we have to understand two things. One, that
By the way, there have been, just to interrupt your thought, there have been suggestions from Sangh Parivar intellectuals that the private sector should engage with companies that will work in the OBOR region, even if the governments are not. I thought that seemed to be an opening, Yeah.
well, that is shall we say, a break in the wall of unreality of the BJP.
Yeah.
It's because there are private sector companies there saying, for God's sake, what the hell are you doing? Why are you keeping us out of this?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Indian private sector companies. Yeah.
Yeah. But so this is what
This is the second OBOR. Yeah.
This is we should see OBOR as an opportunity.
Okay.
And I think that all this is possible if we go back and free ourselves of the trauma of 1962.
Okay. I think that's very key. Yeah.
We have been, the governments have played so dirty with the Indian population. We hid the Henderson Brooks report. It's still in hiding.
Yeah.
And we only know about it because Neville Maxwell released the only copy he had. He had made a promise that he wouldn't release it for 50 years. 50 years after he got the thing, he released it 3 years ago. Yeah. So we know to what extent monumental blunders were made and to what extent we provoked the Chinese. As Shiv Shankar Menon has pointed out, it was convenient for the Chinese that we provoked them because it gave Mao a way of making up for the terrific, lost that face that he had suffered over the Cultural Revolution.
Cultural Revolution.
You know, but so we didn't even think, we were unable to put two and two together. We had no understanding of the Chinese, and this is what we come back to, the absence of any kind of long-term thinking, or coherent strategic thinking. So,
these three, so we need to understand them better.
The second thing is we do need to understand the Chinese and Indians were in some kind of a competition in the early stages of development. But China is now so capital heavy. Like, there's a complementarity on the investment side as there is competition on the trade side. But the trade side now has become relatively small. The Chinese are capable of and willing to invest $1 trillion in India over 10 years. Because India's GDP is more than the GDP of the 7 biggest recipients of OBOR aid. Malaysia, Pakistan, Uzbekistan, etc., all the way up to Germany.
So that's an opportunity we should
This is the market, and the Chinese know that we are well enough organized that investment that comes into India will make money. You know.
So these are the three things.
We should take full advantage of this.
Thank you very much, Prem, for talking to us. That's all we have for now. Thanks for watching.